the day is in the midst of a year-long look at affordable housing in the region. What specifically do you think the legislature should do to help people who can't afford to buy a home or are struggling to rent an apartment?
So it's a really good and big issue. It's something that I've seen for years. In Groton and New London, we are blessed with companies that are growing and people moving to us, but we have a very big housing shortage. And even at a higher salary, it's often very difficult for folks with their bills, with childcare costs, with student loan costs, to be able to afford rent and a mortgage or to save for a down payment of a house. So on Planning and Development Committee, which I've sat on for 6 years, we every year are doing bills on how to help with zoning to allow more housing stock. And then I work carefully with some of our staff at the executive office on how can we make sure we're providing affordable housing options in this area, because a lot of young people who want to move here, they might not have the time or the skill to fix up a fixer-upper. They want something that's affordable, that is clean and neat, and something they can raise a family in. So we do have an awful lot of work to do, but we've been doing a lot of work and we'll continue to put some more bills in. Luckily in Groton and New London, we do have the affordable housing necessary where we're not facing any state penalties, but we still need more housing that is affordable for families.
Connecticut recently enacted a law designed to provide safeguards against lawsuits for out-of-state patients seeking abortions in Connecticut and any provider who helps them. Do you support efforts to make Connecticut such a safe haven?
I do. I sit on Judiciary Committee and I helped write that law. I think it's a great law to really protect women who are traveling to our state for necessary medical care. I was so saddened to hear from my own OBGYN that women have been traveling to her office from out of state already for procedures that were necessary for their life and health that they couldn't get in other states. So we need to make our laws very strong because it's most important that women have good health care.
The state's surplus has grown to over $4 billion. Do you support the decision to use some of that to lower the state's pension debt, or do you think more should be returned to the taxpayer?
So I voted for the budget in 2017, which allowed the volatility cap and allowed what's happening now, that the extra rainy day funds have to go towards pensions. Our unfunded pension problem is a problem for 70 years, that the correct amount of money was not put aside for workers that are currently retired. So it is, I think, our duty by law and our duty as people to make sure that we are putting that money appropriately aside so that our current retirees are getting the pensions they promised. Now, we've been blessed, I guess, with the last couple years of COVID funding, federal dollars. And I am a little bit more weary about changing our tax status until we know what's going on with these federal funds. So I would not want to cut anyone's taxes and then turn around 6 months later and say, just sorry, you owe us more money. I think it's prudent budgeting to wait, see what we're getting from the federal government before we make any structural changes in our income tax, because people don't want to be told you get this much money out of your check and then next month get told, nope, you don't. People want to be able to do stable budgeting for their households.
How should Connecticut move forward to address climate change with regards to electric vehicles, wind power, and other, quote, clean energy strategies?
Yeah, so clean energy costs more than traditional energy with oil and gas. To do that, we need to invest. We need to do an awful lot of investing. That's why I voted for the Clean Air Act this year, which is an investment in water, wind, investment in growing our technologies. We still do have ways to go with that electric car bill. It wasn't quite ready for the end of session, and I've been on Transportation Committee for 6 years, and it's been the same issues coming up as to you can buy an electric car in Connecticut. There are many electric cars being bought every day in Connecticut, but for some of the companies, they want a special carve-out in the law, and in my opinion, they need to follow all the safety rules that our car dealers do follow. So we do need to get that law. Hopefully it'll be ready this year, but the safety standards for cars and the recalls and safety standards for drivers do need to be the same for all of our car dealers and car sellers.
Do you think the 2020 election was conducted fairly and Joe Biden won? And do you support early voting and voting by mail initiatives?
I do think Joe Biden won. Joe Biden is our correctly elected president, and I was very disheartened to see what happened on January 6th when people rioted, in my opinion, committed treason. We were in the Capitol in Hartford on January 6th getting sworn in ourselves, and while we had some folks that were protesting loudly, they were law-abiding. One person was arrested for spitting on another person, which you shouldn't do at a protest for whatever reason you're protesting. But it was horrible to see what was going on in our nation's capital from our state's capital. We were all watching the news together and shocked at what was happening. So I think all that behavior is horribly inappropriate. I'm glad people are getting the penalties that they deserve for the acts that they've done. You know, people died, and it's not right. I do support early voting. I voted yes, and I will be voting yes on November in the ballot. I also support absentee voting for any reason. I voted yes multiple times. I think we should encourage more people to vote. And in these busy lives, with people working 2 jobs or maybe working shift work or just being plain busy, making it where you can vote for who you want to easy is very important, because everyone's voice should be heard, not just the people who work 9-to-5 jobs.
And short-term rentals have become an issue of sorts in most of the region, including the Groton area. How should the town/state move forward with addressing this issue, if at all?
So I think the town definitely needs to move forward in Groton. I've heard from a lot of residents that some folks have short-term rentals and want to make sure that they're abiding by the rules correctly and are doing a really good service by people who want to come in town and stay in more of a house, have access to a kitchen, a washer, dryer. But some of the neighbors are saying if the short-term provider isn't following the rules, I'm dealing with a business in my residential area and they don't want to deal with that. So the town did start the first step, which is registering. The second step is going to have to be a town issue as to what to do. How long do you want to have? Do you want to have 30 days, 14 days, 7 days, whatever the town thinks is best? And I think both sides, both residents and people who have STRs, need to be present and talk about it and come up with a good solution. As far as the state, I think the state would have a really hard time making a law, because you have some communities that have the 7-day short-term rentals, and that's part of their shoreline community. That's part of the shoreline neighborhoods there, and I don't think it's right for the state to tell those folks that you have to change your behaviors.